Good day friends, CEV Group welcomes you for watching this video. Please do not forget to like, comment and subscribe our registered values club for getting all new professional updates. In this video we will basically discuss about the Pagdi system which is prevalent in most part of the India, especially in Maharashtra side. So how it affects the rented property and how the rent is calculated on the basis of if the pagdi has been given. So how it affects, we will discuss all these things in this video. So basically we will discuss about the effect of pagdi system on the valuation of the property. So here the main aim of our this presentation is understanding the valuation of pagdi rights. We generally call it pagdi rights and sometimes it is also called premium in India. And we will discuss about the legal insights and considerations of this pagdi rights. So especially in metro cities, these pagdi rights are prevalent. So we will discuss a comprehensive exploration of the traditional Pagdi system which is prevalent in Mumbai, Delhi and Kolkata, examining its legal foundation under the Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999 and analyzing its significance for tenants, landlords and the broader property market in urban India. So now we will discuss about the introduction about the Pagdi system, how it works. So it is a unique tenancy model. So the Pagdi system has been a fixture in India's urban housing landscape since before independence. Unlike conventional rental arrangements, this traditional system establishes the tenant as a partial co-owner of the premises, though not the land. So creating a complex legal relationship between occupants and property owners. Despite significant increases in the property market values over decades, tenants under the system continues to pay nominal rents that are often a fraction of the current market rates, creating both opportunities and challenges in the urban real estate. So a Pagdi system which is traditionally prevalent in Mumbai, where tenants enjoy partial ownership rights while paying nominal rents. So this is just a picture of that. So um, in this slide we will discuss about its historical origin and why it was made, historical reason and purpose of this Pagdi system. So this Pagdi system emerged as a creative response to the British era taxation policies on property ownership. Property owners developed this arrangement to distribute the tax burden while maintaining some control over their assets. So it was during this colonial era this system was evolved. So initially it was based upon oral agreements. The system centered around substantial lump sum of payments, which was called pagdi, that functioned as both premium and security deposit for the property. And after independence, this system persisted long after independence due to its affordability for tenants and eventual legal recognition, becoming deeply embedded in the urban housing fabric of major Indian cities. The key features of Pagdi system are, in this case, we make a lump sum payments. So tenant pay a significant upfront amount which is called Pagdi as a premium or security deposit to secure tenancy rights. This payment represents a substantial investment that gives the tenant partial ownership interest. Despite property values appreciating over the time, tenants continue to pay extremely low monthly rents compared to market rates. For example, tenants might pay just rupees 500 monthly for an apartment that would otherwise command rupees 60,000 at current market rates. So, with the giving of Pagdi, the tenant will be able to give a nominal rent, and then there are chances of transferable rights. So tenants enjoy significant rights including the ability to sublet the property with the landlord's consent and sell their tenancy rights to others, sharing a portion of the proceeds with the original landlord. Geographical prevalence of the system. So the Pagdi system is most prevalent in Mumbai, Delhi and Kolkata with highest concentration in Mumbai's older neighborhoods. You know, over 7.5 lakh homes in Mumbai alone operate under the Pagdi system, making it a significant feature of the city's housing landscape. The system is particularly common in historic and prime localities such as Kolba, Worli, and Dadar in Mumbai, as well as in older parts of Delhi and Calcutta. Most Pagdi properties are located in the buildings constructed before 1960s, creating a unique intersection of historical preservation and modern housing challenges. Why this Pagdi system still exists? There are certain reasons such as affordability, legal protection, and redevelopment challenges, etc. So, as far as affordability is concerned, it provides crucial affordable housing option for low and middle income residents in expensive urban centers where market rents would be prohibitive. And as far as legal protection is concerned, former recognition under Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999, it has legitimized and preserved the system despite its historical origin as a tax avoidance mechanism. So basically, it was started as a tax avoidance mechanism, but it has got recognition in 1999, and because of that, it has been legitimized. So next, redevelopment challenges. So complex tenant rights make redevelopment difficult, perpetuating the system as the landlord face obstacles in modernizing or selling property with the pagdi tenants. As far as legal framework governing pagdi rights is concerned, it is the Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999 which legalized this system. So Section 56 of the Act explicitly recognized and legalized pagdi payments, describing them as a premium or fine paid for a tenancy transfer or renewal. The Act provides a comprehensive legal framework that defines the rights and obligations of both landlord and the tenants under the unique system. While originally an informal arrangement, the Pagdi system now operates within the formal legal structure that has evolved to address its complexities. So, what Section 56 says, Section 56 of the Maharashtra Rent Control Act, it states, nothing in this act shall affect any premium or pagdi paid before the commencement of this act and or any transfer of tenancy made before such commencement. What are the tenants' right under Pagdi system? Tenant gets partial ownership under this Pagdi system. Tenants enjoy a form of partial ownership of the premises, though not the underlying land, giving them significant security of tenure that extends beyond conventional rental agreements. And then tenants get subletting rights. With the landlord's consent, tenants can sublet the property to others, creating additional income streams while maintaining their primary tenancy rights. And they are also having some rights means they can transfer their tenancy rights to someone else. So perhaps the most valuable is that tenant has right to sell their tenancy rights to a third party, subject to a sharing a portion, typically 30 to 50% of the proceeds, with the landlords as Pagdi premium. And then, most important thing is inheritance rights. So the tenancy rights can be inherited by legal heirs who were residing with the tenant at the time of their death, ensuring continuity of tenancy across the generations. And what are the landlord's rights and obligation as far as this Pagdi system is concerned? They are, though their rights are limited, but they have valuable rights. So, first right is they have the right to receive a significant share, about 30 to 50% of the Pagdi premium, when the tenancy rights are transferred or renewed. So, they are entitled to nominal monthly rent from the tenant, often fixed at the rates far below the current market value. And they have the authority to approve or reject the request for subletting or transfer of the transfer tenancy rights. So, as far as ongoing challenges are concerned, joint responsibility of property maintenance is often unclear in this case. So, leading to the disputes between the landlords and the tenants over repairs, cost, and building upkeep. This ambiguity frequently results in deteriorating the building conditions as neither party assumes full responsibility. So, absence of written agreements. This is important in this case. So, it was an oral tradition. So many Pagdi arrangements, especially older ones, are based on solely on informal or oral contracts between landlord and the tenants, relying on the tradition and mutual understanding rather than formal documentation. And even if there was documentation, it was limited documentation. So lack of comprehensive lease agreements, it often leads to disputes over terms, rights, and responsibilities, with the parties relying on minimal documentation such as rent receipt as proof of their arrangements. And what are the legal complications in this system? When disputes arise, absence of clear written terms makes a resolution more challenging, often requiring courts to interpret the relationship based on conduct, past practices, and limited documentation. Rent or a Pagdi dynamics, how it works basically, now we will discuss. First thing is frozen rental rates. So one of the most striking features of the Pagdi system is the persistence of nominal rent amounts that often remains unchanged for decades despite substantial inflation and market value increases. These fixed rents create an enormous disparity between the Pagdi tenants' pay and the current market rates, sometimes differing by a factor of 100 or more. So basically, the premium which is paid, it is paid as a compensation. So Pagdi system premium effectively compensates for the below market rent, functioning as an upfront payment that acknowledges the significant value of the tenancy rights being transferred. So let us suppose that there may be that market rent is 60,000 and the tenant is paying rupees 500 odd. So average monthly rent paid by the Pagdi tenant in Mumbai is 500, while the comparable market monthly rent at the current market rate may be 60,000. So this is a thing where the problem arises. And then the thing is that if the trans tenancy rights are transferred and the tenant gets some premium Pagdi, then he will have to pay an amount of 30 to 50% as landlord share. So typical percentage of Pagdi premium which is paid to the landlord when the tenancy rights are sold. So how we will do the valuation of Pagdi rights? So we what we have to look for when we are doing valuation of Pagdi rights. The valuation of Pagdi rights represents a specialized niche for property assessment that differs significantly from conventional real estate valuation. Unlike standard property valuations that focuses on freehold ownership, Pagdi valuation centers on the premium associated with the tenancy rights. First thing is you have to look for is premium nature. So Pagdi represents a premium for tenancy rights rather than for land ownership. See here, this is the basic thing. So it is premium for the tenancy rights rather than the land ownership. So it reflects the value of the occupancy rights at below market rent. So basically this is the thing which you have to look for. It is value of the occupancy rights which is far below the market rent. And then valuation depends primarily on market values of the property and the differential between actual rent pay and the potential market rent. Then the other thing which you have to consider is transfer value. The value reflects the tenant's rights to occupy at below market rent and the ability to transfer these rights to the others for a consideration. So what are the factors which influence the Pagdi valuation? First factor is the location and market value. The properties in prime locations command higher Pagdi premiums while with the neighborhood prestige and amenities significantly impacting the valuation. Then extent of tenant rights. So breadth of rights granted to the tenants, particularly regarding subletting and selling, directly affects the value of the Pagdi premium. Then the terms of tenancy, the duration, condition, and specific terms of tenancy agreements influence how valuable the Pagdi rights are perceived to be. Then the condition or physical condition of the property and its redevelopment potentials can significantly impact the valuation associated with the Pagdi rights. So typical Pagdi premium percentages. Standard landlord share is 30 to 50%. Tenants, it means tenant share will be 50 to 70%. And then minimum legal share of the owner may be 33%. So standard landlord share is between 30 to 50% means the commonly expected percentage of gross sale amount paid to the landlord when the tenancy rights are transferred. And it means the portion which will be retained by the outgoing tenant after paying the landlord shares from the sale proceeds will be 50 to 70%, and the minimum percentage commonly recognized in the legal proceeds for landlord share in of Pagdi premium is 33%. So these percentages vary based on locality, building age, and individual negotiations. For example, when selling tenancy rights for a property valued at 60 lakh, the landlord typically receives anything between 18 to 30 lakh as Pagdi premium, while the tenant retains the remainder. So, what are the legal bases of Pagdi premium? So, legal basis, as far as legal basis are concerned, the Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999 and its section 56, it deals with the Pagdi premium. The crucial provisions explicitly recognize Pagdi system as lawful consideration for the transfer of tenancy rights, providing the legal foundation for the entire system. The Act defines the Pagdi premium as a sum paid or promised to be paid as consideration for grant, renewal, or continuance of tenancy. So this legal recognition transferred what was once potentially questionable practice into a legitimate component of property transactions in region where this act applies. The Maharashtra Rent Control Act provides a legal foundation for the Pagdi transactions throughout the state. So legal definition, as far as the legal definition of Pagdi is concerned, The Act specifically enables landlords to charge a premium on the transfer or renewal of tenancy, creating a framework for determining the legitimacy of Pagdi payments. And then, what are the tax and financial implications of this Pagdi system? Tax history and compliance. The Pagdi system originated partly as a tax avoidance mechanism during the British era. Today, there remains significant implication for both parties. Landlord must declare Pagdi receipts as income, while the tenants may claim certain deductions while selling rights. Financing challenges. So most banks and financial institutions are reluctant to provide loans for purchasing Pagdi rights due to the complex legal nature of these properties. So this creates a significant barrier to entry and limits the market liquidity of such property. So there is financing challenges means you cannot take a loan easily by for, for hypothecating or mortgaging such properties. And then there are income tax implications. So Pagdi receipts are taxable under Income Tax Act. So this is very important. So the landlord must report these as an income from house property or income from other sources. So while tenants selling rights may face capital gain tax on their portion. Challenges in valuation, and when you go for doing the valuation of this aggregate system, how and what are the challenges you will face in valuation? First is market opacity. So because of the lack of formal transparent market for Pagdi system, it makes establishing fair market value extremely challenging. Unlike regular real estate with the comparables and market data, Pagdi right transactions are often occur in informal networks, and then because of lack of documentation, there are always documentation issues. So informal agreements on the big transactions create significant uncertainty when attempting to value Pagdi rights. Many agreements, many arrangements lack comprehensive documentation, relying instead on verbal agreements and legal frameworks. And some subjective factors also affect the valuation, such as the value of tenancy rights varies greatly based on subjective factors like the relationship between landlord and the tenant, the condition of the property, and the unwritten local customs that are difficult to quantify. Role of registered valuers and legal expert in this Pagdi system. As far as role of registered values is concerned, while formal valuation reports are rarely mandated for Pagdi transfers, professional valuers can provide objective assessment of tenancy rights based on market conditions, particularly characteristics and legal precedents. And as far as the legal advisors are concerned, their roles is that they help in drafting transfer agreement and ensure compliance with the Maharashtra Rent Control Act and advising on tax implication of Pagdi transactions. So, how the importance of registered valuers and legal experts is increasing, is growing, that as the dispute increase and regulations evolves, there are increasing calls for formal valuation processes to ensure fairness and transparency in Pagdi transactions, suggesting a growing role for professional advisors. So now we will discuss about the legal process involved in this transfer when there is transfer of Pagdi rights. So in When there are transfer of Pagdi rights, there are tripartite agreements. So the transfer process begins with a formal or informal agreement among the three parties, the landlord, the outgoing tenant, and the incoming tenant. So this establishes the terms and conditions of the transfer. But the main thing is that you need landlord's consent for the transfer of Pagdi rights. So the landlord must provide explicit consent for a transfer to be valid. So this consent is not merely a formality but a substantive requirement under the Maharashtra Control Act. And then amount of Pagdi or Pagdi premium which is to be paid. So the incoming tenant pays the agreed upon amount to the outgoing tenant, who then pays the landlord shares, which is typically 30 to 50% as the Pagdi premium. So this payment is mandatory for the transfer of which is to be legally recognized. So what are the documentations which are required? While documentations varies in formality, the process typically includes rent receipts in new tenant's name, a no objection certificate from the landlord, and receipt for the Pagdi premium payment which has been done. So next is inheritance of Pagdi rights. So, it is inherited to the next successors of the tenant. So it is a family succession. So as far as Maharashtra Rent Control Act, it provides specific provisions for inheritance of Pagdi rights through Section 715D, ensuring that tenancy can continue within the family across the generations. So rights are transferable to the legal heirs who were residing with the tenant at the time of their death, creating a form of protected family succession to the valuable property rights. So unlike transfers to the non-family members, inheritance transfers do not require payment of an additional Pagdi premium to the landlord, making this form of succession particularly valuable. So the succession, this for inheritance of property rights. So Maharashtra Rent Control Act of 1999, this Section 715D stipulates that that in the event of death of a tenant, the right of tenancy shall devolve upon the members of the tenant's family residing with the tenant at the time of his death. Then transfer to the non-family members. So how it can be done? For this, first thing is you required landlord's consent. So unlike family inheritance, because in family inheritance you do not need to have any consent from the landlord, but in case of it is transferred to non-family members, then you need some consent from the landlord. So who has the right to refuse the transfer if the reasonable grounds exist? Then NOC from the heirs. So to prevent future disputes, transfers often requires no objection certificate from the other potential heirs of the tenant, confirming they do not claim to the tenancy rights being transferred. Then premium payment. So when transferring to the non-family members, the landlord typically receives a substantial Pagdi premium of at least 33% of the market value, though this often may rise up to 50% in practice, especially in prime locations. So for this transfer to the non-family members, it requires more formal documentation than the family transfers, often including a written transfer deed, receipt for premium paid, and a new rent receipt in the name of transferee's name. So selling Pagdi rights. So how this process is? So it is a complex transactions. When a tenant decide to sell their tenancy rights, they must first obtain landlord's consent and negotiate to a share of the proceeds that will go to the landlord as equity premium. So the landlord typically receives anything between 30 to 50% of the total sale amount, with the exact percentage base varying with on the locality, property value, and negotiating strength. The remaining proceeds go to the outgoing tenant who effectively capitalize on the value they have built up through their long-term tenancy at below market rent. So, for example, if the Pagdi rights for an apartments are sold for 60 lakhs, the landlord might receive 20 to 30 lakhs while the outgoing tenants retain 30 to 40 lakhs. Thus, the sale of Pagdi rights represents one of the most significant financial transactions in the system, often involving substantial sums that reflects decades of property value appreciation. Subletting under Pagdi system. So how it is possible, how it is done? Subletting. So first thing is you need landlord's approvals. So before subletting, the tenant must secure landlord's approval. Unauthorized subletting can lead to the eviction of and loss of valuable tenancy rights. Then rent sharing agreement. So this is an important document. So once approved, the arrangement typically involves sharing of rental income between the tenant and the landlord, often in an approximate ratio of 35 is to 65, means 35 to the tenant and 65 to the landlord. For this, you need a subletting agreement that should be documented with a formal agreement specifying the terms, duration, and rent sharing arrangements to prevent any disputes. Then ongoing management. So original tenant remains responsible for the to the landlord and must ensure that the subtenant complies with the original tenancy conditions. So subtenant cannot go beyond the original tenancy condition. This is an important fact. Legal disputes in this in the Pagdi system and how what are the remedies available as per law. So common areas of conflict are dispute over maintenance responsibility and cost between landlord and the tenants, then disagreement regarding the appropriate share of Pagdi payment during transfer, then conflict over subletting arrangement and rent sharing, and inheritance disputes among the family members of the deceased tenants. So what are the legal remedies available in these cases? So tenant can file declaratory suits under section 34 of the Specific Relief Act to establish their rights when threatened. Several landmark cases are pending before the Supreme Court addressing fundamental landlord conflicts in the system. So this system involves a legal complexity. So due to unique nature of Pagdi arrangements and a mix of formal law and informal practices, these disputes often involve complex legal questions that can take years to resolve through court system. Then impact on redevelopment and urban planning. So this is the important effect of Pagdi system. So redevelopment challenges. So what happens is that the Pagdi system significantly complicates the efforts to redevelop aging buildings as each tenant possesses valuable rights that must be accommodated or compensated, often making projects financially unviable. Then, in such cases, there will be stakeholders conflicts. So, tenants' rights and landlords' interests frequently come into direct conflict over redevelopment proposals, creating deadlocks that can leave the buildings in deteriorated condition for decades. So, as far as responses are concerned, the policy of Maharashtra government has explored various reforms panels and special provisions to facilitate necessary urban renewal while respecting existing Pagdi rights, seeking a balance between preservation and modernization. So what are the recent legal developments and the government initiatives in this scenario? So legal reforms efforts. So Maharashtra government has been considering significant amendments to the Rent Control Act to address the challenges posed by the Pagdi system while balancing tenant protection with the property development needs. And then gradual transition vision. The government has a gradual transition vision. It is special committees have been formed to study the ownership rights of Pagdi tenants and propose comprehensive solution to long-standing disputes and ambiguities in the system. There is growing push towards gradually phasing out of the Pagdi system in favor of market-based rents, potentially with the compensatory mechanism for existing tenants to ensure their fair transition. So recent policy discussions have been centered on creating more transparent system that preserves affordable housing while allowing for necessary urban renewal and property modernization. So what are the advantages of Pagdi system? First thing is affordable housing. So the Pagdi system provides a critical affordable housing option in some of the India's most expensive urban areas, allowing residents to live in locations that would otherwise be financially inaccessible. For many lower and middle income families, this system represents the only feasible way of to maintain residency in central city locations with good access to jobs and services. And second advantage is security of the tenant. So tenant enjoys remarkable protection from eviction and rent increases, creating housing stability that spans generations and allow for long-term community development. The security extends beyond conventional tenant protections, offering a cozy ownership status that provides significant peace of mind. And then it also helps in wealth building. The ability to transfer tenancy rights for a substantial sums create a unique wealth building mechanism for tenants who can who can eventually monetize their long-term occupancy. So this aspect has allowed many families to generate significant capital from what began as a simple rental arrangement. So what are the disadvantages and criticism of this system? First thing is property deterioration. So the extremely low rents discourage landlords from investing in maintenance and renovations, leading to widespread deterioration of housing stock. Neither party has sufficient incentive to fund major repairs, resulting in unsafe living conditions in many older buildings. And then legal ambiguity. So despite its formal recognition, the Pagdi system creates numerous legal ambiguities and disputes over rights, responsibility, and valuation. The mixture of formal law and informal practices leads to protected legal battles that strain the court system. And then there are certain market restrictions because of financial limitations and complex transfer requirements reduce property market fluidity, creating inefficiency in urban land use and housing allocation. The system effectively locks significant portion of urban real estate in the arrangements that resist modernization. So comparative analysis, now we will do a comparative analysis of Pagdi system versus conventional renting. So we will take different aspect. First, we will take about ownership status. So in Pagdi system, the tenant has partial ownership of the premises, and in conventional renting, there is no ownership rights to the tenant. And initial payment, so substantial lump sum amount as a Pagdi premium is paid, but in case of conventional system, only security deposit typically which ranges from 2 to 3 months rent is given. Then monthly rent, as far as monthly rent is concerned, in case of Pagdi system, it is nominal, which is far below the market rates. But in conventional system, full market rent is to be paid generally. So transfer rights in case of Pagdi system, the tenant can sell the tenancy rights for a consideration, but in conventional system there is no right to sell, and there are limited subletting options available to the tenant. And instances it has inheritance. As far as inheritance is concerned, it has a right passed to the family. So in case generally a rent, it typically terminates with the tenant's death. And geographic scope, it is limited to select Indian metros, and conventional renting, it is available uniformly throughout the India. So the Pagdi system represents a unique hybrid between ownership and rental that has no direct equivalent in the most global real estate markets. Its distinctive features make it particularly valuable for the tenants seeking long-term security and potential value appreciation. So now we will take some case studies. First, it is a Pagdi system in Mumbai, a city which is defined by Pagdi. So there is extreme rent disparities between Pagdi system and conventional rental system. So Mumbai stands as the epicenter of Pagdi system with approximately 7.5 lakh, means 7 lakh 50,000 houses operating under this arrangement. These properties are concentrated in older established neighborhoods that form the historic core of the city. The rent disparities in Mumbai's Pagdi properties are among the most dramatic in the world. In prime areas like Kolba and Worli, tenants may pay as little as 500 per month for the apartments that would command a market rent of 60,000 or more. So it leads to complex ownership structures. Many Mumbai buildings features intricate ownership and transfer arrangements that have evolved over the generations, creating a web of rights, claims and expectations that pose significant challenges for urban planning and development. So South Mumbai contains thousands of public property. Mumbai's, if we learn about the Mumbai's Pagdi landscape, as we have already discussed, there are about 7 lakh 50,000 plus Pagdi homes across the city. It is generally concentrated in the south and central Mumbai. Many buildings are over 70-year-olds, and it has critical affordability housing resource in this city. So next we will take about the case studies regarding the legal disputes in Pagdi properties. We have already discussed many things, but in this case we will take about certain case studies. First is Supreme Court cases. Several landmark cases related to Pagdi rights have reached the Supreme Court of India, addressing fundamental questions about the nature, these rights, and the balance between tenant protection and the property owner's interest. These cases have been pending for years, reflecting in the complex legal questions involved. And then there are certain premium disputes. A recurring source of litigation involves disagreements over the appropriate share of pagdi premium between landlords and the tenant during the property transfers. Courts have generally recognized a minimum share of 33% for the landlords, but disputes over higher percentage are common. And then we have already discussed there are redevelopment conflicts. Numerous cases involves disputes over redevelopment projects where developers, landlords, and Pagdi tenants have conflicting interests. These disputes have stalled critical renewal projects across Mumbai, leading to deteriorating infrastructure in the part of the city. Practical considerations for buyers and sellers. So when the if the sellers have to transfer the property rights, and like in case of buyers, if they are buying the tenancy rights, what they have to look for. First thing is verification. So the prospective buyers of Pagdi rights should thoroughly verify the seller's rights and the existence of valid agreements. This includes confirming that seller is the legitimate tenant and that all the necessary consents from the landlords and other stakeholders have been secured. Then legal due diligence is essential before any transactions. This would include title verification, renew of rent receipts, examination of written arrangement agreements, and confirmation of property status under relevant rent control laws. Then there should be clear documentation of transfer conditions is crucial, including the landlord's share of the Pagdi premium, maintenance responsibilities, and any restrictions on future transfers. All parties should understand their rights and obligations before proceeding. So, what the main things which you should keep in mind is reluctance to involve landlord in discussion. So, these are the certain warning signs which you should take care of. Then inability to produce consistent rent receipts, disputes among family members about the transfer rights, and building notices regarding developments or demolition. Role of legal professionals and pagdi transactions. So we have already discussed they have to prepare the documents, lawyers default draft the crucial tripartite agreement and transfer deeds that formalize Pagdi's transactions, ensuring all legal requirements are met and interests are protected. Then succession planning. So legal experts provide the vital guidance on inheritance and the succession rights, helping tenants to ensure their valuable Pagdi rights will transfer smoothly to their intended heirs. Then dispute resolution. They help in dispute resolution when conflicts arise. Lawyers represent parties in negotiations and court proceedings, working to achieve favorable settlements or judicial determination on contested issues. Then they also help in tax compliance, so legal advisors help ensure proper tax treatment of public transactions, including appropriate reporting of premium payments and calculation of potential capital gains. So legal professionals play critical roles in navigating the complex landscape of public transactions, helping to ensure compliance and protect the interest of all the parties involved. Future outlook. So government is trying to phasing out or reforming Pagdi system. So government initiatives are increasingly focused on gradually bringing rents closer to the market rate, potentially with the transitional subsidies for the vulnerable tenants to prevent displacement. So special provisions are being formulated to facilitate the redevelopment of aging Pagdi buildings. These are being explored with the potential incentive for both landlords and the tenants to participate in modernization efforts. So government is trying and bringing future reforms that will likely aim to strike a balance between protecting tenants from sudden displacement while allowing property owners greater flexibility to maintain and improve their assets. So increased tenants transparency, it moves towards more formal documentation, standardization, valuation methodologies, and clear legal framework are expected to reduce disputes and create greater certainty for all the stakeholders. Recommendations for stakeholders. So, what are the recommendations for tenants, for landlords, for policymakers? As far as tenants are concerned, they should document all aspects of your tenancy arrangement, even if it is informal. Maintain complete records of rent receipts and public payments. Seek legal advice before transferring or selling tenancy rights. Consider succession planning to protect the rights of heirs. Stay informed about potential legislative changes. And for landlords, they should issue proper receipt for all the Pagdi payments they have received. They should maintain transparent account of rent and premium payments. They should clarify maintenance responsibilities in writing. And they should consult the legal expert before approving transfers. They should explore potential redevelopment options that respect tenants' rights. And for policymakers, policymakers should develop clearer legal frameworks for Pagdi transactions. They should create specialized dispute resolution mechanism. They should strike a balance between tenant protection and urban renewal needs. They should consider transitional subsidy for vulnerable tenants, and they should streamline the redevelopment process for aging buildings. Summary of legal insights. We have already discussed that it is a complex but recognized framework. So, the Pagdi system operates within the legal recognized framework centered on Maharashtra Rent Control Act 1999, which legitimized what was originally an informal arrangement designed to circumvent the colonial era taxation. So, the Pagdi system premium stand as a cornerstone of the entire system, representing the consideration paid for tenancy rights that can be transferred, inherited, or sold subject to specific conditions and landlord consent. So the system creates a unique legal structures where rights and obligations are distributed between the tenants and the landlords in the ways that differ significantly from conventional property ownership or rental arrangements, leading to both benefits and challenges for all the stakeholders which are involved in it. So, summary of valuation consideration. So, market value it depends upon the property location, market conditions, etc. Then the valuer have to look for the tenant rights, the extent of rights to sublet, transfer, and modify, and then they have to check the rent differential, means the gap between actual rent and the market rent potential. So they have to look after the condition, property condition, physical state, and redevelopment potential. They have to check for before proceeding with the valuation process, and they should have knowledge of legal local customs, relationship, and unwritten expectations. So the valuation of public system remains challenging due to informal nature of many arrangements and absence of standardized methodologies. Professional valuation and legal compliance are increasingly important as security of these transactions grow. So this is all in this video. Thank you. Have a nice day.